you're going to have to figure out how to manage your time, how to find ways to find tools or to get skills or other things that are going to help you manage the things that you're doing. So here's what we're going to talk about. Now this was a presentation that I did, I don't know, a year or two ago at one of the on tours. So we felt it was important enough to talk about many of the things. So we put it in on Friday so you can have some takeaways. So first off, everything begins with you. We're going to talk about basically some things that maybe you haven't thought about in terms of how you might be more efficient with who you are. So we'll look at that. Planning is not optional. You got to find a plan. You're going to have to do some things to get your tasks focused every day, every week. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about some time savers, some things that may make it easier for you to do certain tasks and to get more accomplished. And then we're going to wrap it up by talking about you're going to have to take some time to recharge yourself, to breathe, okay? So we're going to look at that. All right, so everything really does begin with you. So let's start off by I'm going to ask you some questions about you. All right, first off, there's three things. One, what are the three most challenging things about your job? Yes?
Information overload.
Okay, you can write this down.
Oh,
Write it down. But thank you. What are the three most challenging things about your job? Now the next three things could be the same, but they also could be different. And that are, what are the three things that consume most of your time? Three most challenging things about your job, and the three things that consume most of your time. And this kind of falls back in line with your superpowers, but what are the three things that you excel at? You know, they always say, unless you put it down and you write it, and you identify these things, it's sort of ambiguous when you don't know what's difficult or what all of these things are. So of course, putting those down is an important piece.
it gives you clarity.
Absolutely. Okay, so next question. On a scale of 1 to 5, how well do you really think you know yourself? How well do you think you know all of those things, what you do every day, the conflicts that you have, the things that, make you successful or challenge you? How well do you really think you know yourself on a scale of 1 to 5? Okay, so let's look at some things that may help clarify some of that. I think these are things that really can make you more successful in terms of knowing who you are. All right, so there's five steps to understanding your peak work time. And peak work time is sort of one of those things that I think we all think, well, it's this time or that time, but I think it's really a combination of stuff. All right, so first off, step one is, when during the day do you have the most energy? However, it's also not just about when you have the most energy, but it's also when do you have the least distractions, okay? So sometimes, we get into this, oh, I'm a morning person, or I'm an afternoon, or I do more in the evening. But if you're a morning person, and that's where you have your most energy and your most focus, but if it's also the time when you have the most distractions, how effective can you really be at doing the most difficult tasks? So you have to say, all right, I'm not a morning person personally. I'm more of an evening or afternoon person. It's when I have the most energy. But it's not the best time for me to work because it's also when I have the most distractions. Now, so for me, I'm in the office usually by about 6:15 in the morning. And it's quiet, and it's when I can get the most done. It's when I'm able to focus the most, even though it's not when I'm naturally the most energized, but because I get up early enough and I get my coffee and then I get to work and I avoid all the traffic, it's actually when I get a lot of things that are the most challenging tasks of my day done before the office gets busy and there are things going on. So that's an important distinction, not just when you have your most energy, but it's also when you have the least amount of distractions. So, and it's really about doing the most difficult tasks during that time. So understanding that and identifying that is an important piece. Okay, so step 2. So when you say to yourself, all right, this is when I have good energy, I'm also able to focus the best, what you then want to do is say, I want to be able to carve out 90 minutes, maybe one 90-minute section, or if it's possible, two 90-minute sections, because that's when you're able to then take the most difficult tasks of your day and hopefully focus on those. See? And this is something that's unique because 90-minute periods are not just something that, where it's like, oh, that's 90 minutes, we'll pull that out. But here's why. Research says that there's something called the ultradian rhythm. Everybody has it. It's this cycle where we have the ability to focus on 90 minutes of time and then we take a break. Our body naturally says, I can get work done 90 minutes and then take a break. You might have one, you might have two, but it's about understanding that if you get this time, and again, it's not about just answering the phone or doing email, it's this 90-minute cycle of being able to focus intently on the things that are often the major tasks that you have to accomplish. So this ultradian rhythm is something that you can figure out. And it could be any time during your day when, again, you have good concentration, little distractions. It's when you're trying to do these things. During the 20 minutes, the important thing here is to not continue to work, to take a break, to be able to walk out, to go get a cup of coffee, to do whatever it is, but to allow yourself to have that moment where it's not so intense, where you feel overwhelmed. Bless you. It's important to understand with all of this is that work does not equal work in terms of all work is not created equal, all right? It just isn't. Because there are some tasks for each of you that are going to be a bigger challenge than other tasks. So when you understand that, then you have to say, all right, so I know when I'm most focused, I know what works best for me, I know when I have the least amount of distractions. I want to take that work that is what sucks the life out of you and do it during that time when you have the most focus and the least distractions. And it's the other tasks that you just relish and it builds you up and gives you plenty of energy. Then you try to do those during the time when you can just have, a little bit of time where it doesn't really, you don't need all that focus. So understanding that all work is not created is an important part. And the work that's most difficult or most challenging is when you want to do it during that peak time when you have the least amount of distractions. Now, the hard part for us oftentimes is we try to pack so much into our day, and any little distraction, when you've got this day and you're like, I've got so much to get accomplished. Well, what happens is you get distractions. You get a phone call, somebody stops into the office, and all of a sudden your day's been derailed. That's not good.
because as soon as that happens, that phone call or the person stopping into the office or whatever that may be, it's difficult to not feel or express that it's an interruption. And it could be a missed opportunity on the phone call or on the person, because if you're thinking, okay, you know what, I'll talk to you, but I really need to get back to what I'm doing. That's a lost opportunity that could be really important for a connection. Whether it's a potential client or a current client, those are things that are important to understand. So when you have your day, try to plan for some interruptions. Don't feel as though your entire day is packed in, because by allowing this, you're going to have an opportunity to not feel stressed out when those interruptions are going to happen. And you know they happen every single day. So you've got to make sure that you have an opportunity to plan that. Now, it's not always possible, but if you can have a creative schedule where you can take, again, for me, evenings, afternoons are often the best, but sometimes that doesn't work. But if you can flex your time to say, you know what, this is not the best time for me, even though it's when I have the most energy and the least amount of distractions, that's not going to work. I'm going to try and plan some of that later on. Flex your time so that you can figure out what works best with your schedule. Now again, you have office hours many times, but some of you might be able to flex that. You might be able to come a little earlier, and maybe not every day. But even if you only said on this day or that day, I'm going to do some things differently with my schedule, because I know that if I do that, on those tasks that I know I'm going to have to really spend a lot of energy on, I want to be able to do that at the point where I know I'm going to be most effective. So having the ability to sort of flex your schedule might be a really good way to accomplish some of those tougher tasks. Okay, so then here's another big key. It's about energy level. And this basically talks about, where you are going to be able to recharge your batteries. Now, everybody done Myers-Briggs, or are you aware of Myers-Briggs? Okay, Myers-Briggs, there's a lot of good points to that. 16 different personality types, introvert, extrovert, sensing, intuitive, thinker, feeler, judger, perceiver. But one of the things that I think Myers-Briggs does really well is on the introvert-extrovert side. Now, it's not about whether you like people or not, but it's really about where your energy comes from. So for Myers-Briggs, what they say is, go back over here, is in an introvert world, you basically need time by yourself to recharge your battery. I mean, how many of you are introverts? That if you know, so you are introverts in a business of dealing with people. No, it's not, because the great thing is that you love people. The thing to understand is that by dealing with people and having always that contact, your batteries are going to be taken down. You're going to feel drained, and so you're going to have to recognize that when you're on the phone or you're having to talk with clients or they're coming to the office, that's going to slowly wear you down. So if you understand that, then you have to plan for times throughout the day when you have your own personal time so that you can take a breath and feel like you can gain that energy back, because as an introvert, dealing around people, you're going to just feel like it's going to take some time. How many of you ended up at the day where you just had to go back to your room for 5 minutes just to be able to yeah, that's what happens. So for extroverts though, we get our energy from being around people. We're the ones that like this, we're like, oh, yeah, baby, we're, all day long. And, it's like, let's get on with this, right? It's like, yeah, go. That challenge for you, though, is when it comes time to have to build your itineraries. And you're sitting in your little office or in front of your computer and you're like, I'm going to just have to shoot myself in the head because it's hard. Because now you've got to focus and you don't have the people and you don't have the energy building you up. That's going to be one of those things to identify, because when you do that, if you're sitting there and you're distracted and then you got to get up. I'm notorious for having to leave my house and go to Home Depot. Because I'll have the music going and I got the TV on and I'm like, but for me, it's about people. So I'm like, okay, let's see. Oh, what do I need at Home Depot? Let's go check it out. And I can walk around and be around and I'll talk to the people. I got to recharge my battery. And then I can go back to the house and finish off, whatever task it was that I was doing. But it's like, being by myself for long periods of time, it sucks the energy, and that's an important piece. So this is really, to me, a critical thing when you understand that. Just identify that if you are which one, know that the longer you have to deal with people, drain your battery. If you're sitting there doing a lot of tasks and you're not talking to people as an extrovert, get up and find some place to be able to get some energy back in. So now if you want to do it again, there's a great website called Keirsey.com. David Keirsey is, some of what he talks about is a little different than Myers-Briggs per se, Isabel Myers, and she basically did some things, but he does a great one. It's free. You can get your results if you want to do it again and get a personality type indicator. So there are some really good things that you'll take out of that. One other one I think that's really good for Myers-Briggs is the judging perceiving piece. So the caution is when you hear the word judging, it's not about being judgmental. It's about, for a judger, you want to come to conclusion. You can pull everything together and say, there it is, I'm done with it. The perceiver is, I don't have enough information. I'm never going to have enough information. So this is, you're having to do research. You're pulling stuff together. So for the perceiver, you're like, you're never going to have enough information for the client. You're going to have all kinds of options you're going to want to deliver. But you're going to have to figure out how to tie that into a nice little bow and put it off. But for the judger, you may be too quick to say, all right, I got them one. That's good. Let's see what they like about that. So you may need to take a little more time to think, all right, do they need another option? Could I say, here's a couple other choices? So I think there's a couple of great things that you can pull out of this Myers-Briggs. But again, that's a great site that you can do, and you can get those results for free. So there's some other research that I think can be really helpful, and it's called environmental preferences. So environmental preferences is about how you interact and how the outside world affects you. All right? The first one is sound. As, is it too noisy in your work environment? Do you get distracted? How many of you cannot have any music playing when you're trying to focus and do that? Okay? Noise is a distraction. How many of you love to have background music and you can do anything, it's like you don't mind? See, those are things that you have to consider, whether you sit in an office or whether you have a home office. But if you have that sound, whatever is the one that helps or hinders you, be cognizant of that. If you work in an office and it's difficult to concentrate sometimes because the office can be noisy, all the side conversations that are going on, you might need, again, now we're talking specifically about the times when you're trying to do the most concentrated work. You might need to reserve a conference room and be able to get up and go to a conference room so that you can get those tasks done that you need the most focus. If you also might be able to use like Bose noise canceling headphones, and again, and I'm not talking about wearing them all day, I'm just saying when you've got that time to be able to, you really need to get some stuff done, that's a good way to do it. If you do like to have music, if you don't like the perfect quiet, but you're at the house and the kids are off at school or whatever it is, you have the ability then to have your background music or whatever it's going to help you be able to do that. Light is another big factor. Light, bright light or having sun coming in or whatever lights you have at the house. At the office, you may not have that control, but I would be willing to bet you probably could bring in a desk lamp. You could probably do some things to change the lighting. However, it makes you be more effective. I think that's an important thing to consider because light can be challenging. Fluorescent lights are horrible. You know, they just don't feel like, so, you know, I know a lot of people in our office, you know, they often will not turn on their overhead lights, so they brought in a floor lamp and they've got a desk lamp. They've done some things to add some warmth to that. You know, we were fortunate in our previous office, we all had exterior windows. And so it was really great to have, you know, a lot of that natural light coming in. It made it easier to work. So, you know, however you are, think about how that light affects you and how you might change that, again, to be more efficient and effective. We've experienced it all week, right? The temperature, the lack of control, too cold or too hot. You may not have control in your office. At home, I'm hoping you have control of that. But at the office, which is often challenging, but just like you did here, you might need to layer. I know that they don't necessarily like to have heaters. However, there are some radiant heaters that can be used, okay? So think about that. Ask before you do it. You know, you don't want to be popping any circuit breakers or anything. But temperature again, you know, if it's too hot or too cold, it is going to change your ability to have some focus. Seating is the last one. Now, some of you might be able to just lay out on the floor and get a prop up and a pillow and you get a lot of work done. Some of you need to be up and sitting upright and focused and everything, you know, level. You know, their what's that word? Ergonomics of that. That is, you know, we often forget that that's a big piece of that, okay? Now, here's the thing that I think we forget. Sitting, whatever chair that you have, why would you want to sit in a chair that isn't comfortable? And I know it may sound like a lot of money, but I would be willing to go out and spend $400 or $500 on a chair that gives me the ability to adjust how high the arms are, you know, whether there's lumbar support, you know, can I pivot, can I raise, lower, you know, raise the back. I mean, if you're sitting in this 8 hours a day, I'm going to even say, even if you're at the office, it's worth an investment to get something that is not going to give you back problems or that you're comfortable in and you can focus. So environmental impacts, the things that affect you on a day-to-day, you can change some of that, and it's something that we often just don't think about. Yeah?
One of the things in starting this I've noticed, personally, I don't know if anybody else has, in working with two screens, one being a laptop, that I've had to find at first stage, it's almost also height. I mean, now height's an issue
Yeah.
because you're working with, I don't know if you guys touch it, just like all day long.
Yeah.
So I went and I looked up at different kinds of platforms. At first I had
Sure.
plastic boxes just to see how high,
Yeah.
what's the ideal height. So I got a sense of, you know, just that movement back and forth, of screen to screen, and spending so much time on screen. I don't know if everyone felt that. I thought that once I got that kind of settled,
Yeah.
I also felt physically, I felt like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. We, Virtuoso did a really nice thing probably 4 years ago, I think. They had ergonomic specialists come in and go through and look at how everybody was and make some determinations. And at some point, they got those sit-stand platforms. So, you know, so basically anybody that wanted one, they have one that sits on their desk, but they also then can raise up and they can stand, so you can alter that. There's a lot of things to think about. And yes, dual monitors, if you don't have that, you know, better. Now, the danger of dual monitors, while I love them, there's that when it comes to trying to multitask, okay? So it's oftentimes we know that you're watching a webinar and you're over here doing email as well. So I think there's some things that, you know, you have to be concerned about. But anything that you can do and understand about how your position at work, how you do certain things, you can change that, okay? All right, so now that we know about you, about all of the different ways that you might change and be more effective, then it's time to start planning. So planning is key, and you can't not plan or you're basically going to end up not getting what you want done. So you've got to have a to-do list. However you accomplish this, you've got to start the week or the day off with something that you say, these are the things that I want to accomplish. Okay, the first thing to do then, in order to get this list, is you've got to do a brain dump. So you just got to get all of the things out. Now, however you want to do it, whether it's a day or a week, but you've got to just get everything out that you think you need to accomplish. Okay, get that list done. Once you have this list done, the next thing that you have to do is to prioritize. So this is a tool, it's called the Eisenhower method, and General Eisenhower, President Eisenhower had this process, and he basically said, look, I'm going to put the things that are urgent and important here. Things that are less important and urgent here, less urgent but important, and then less important and less urgent there. Anything that fell over there, he basically said, they don't need to be done. Okay? So prioritizing your tasks is key so that you know on a day or on a week the things that are most important. Again, there are things that could be less urgent, important, or less important but urgent. You've got to prioritize that in order to be able to do that. So now that you have this list and you've prioritized them, the next thing that you need to do is to determine how much time do you think those things are going to take me. And it's going to be, sort of like a crapshoot, first off, until you get good at understanding what these tasks take for time. Right now it may take you 8 hours to plan, a small itinerary, but at some point it's going to get less, but you may not know. But you need to say, I think it's going to take me this much time to get those tasks accomplished. So time, how will it work? How much time do I need? Now here's the part that's going to be like, you're going to be like, what? You can only pick 3 to 5 tasks to do a day. Now remember, we're not talking about doing an email. We're talking about those 3 to 5 tasks that we think are, that I need focus and I need to do. Excuse me. So 3 to 5, because remember, we're trying to not have this 25 task day that one, we feel stressed because we're not going to get it done, and then interruptions are going to come and you're going to feel even more stressed because you've not been able to get done. So trying to say, I think I really can do 3 big important tasks today. Not that you're not going to do other things, it's just that we're saying those are the things that today need to get done on.
Should those get done within a 90-minute cycle, or each task is a 90-minute cycle?
Could be done 3 to 5 in a 90-minute or 3 to 5 in a day, depending.
So, to clarify,
Yeah.
that means don't put little things on like make doctor's appointments or those little things. These are things that not require 90
That's right. Yeah.
require
Yeah, those things that you're like, I've got to get this done. It's going to take all my focus and all my energy in order to be able to get that done. So then you have to add some details here. Because the task, for example, let's say one of the tasks is itinerary for client A. Well, when you write that down then, you're like, oh, wait a minute, okay, that's a hotel, oh, that's a tour, I got to get transfers. Well, now that's not a single task, it's multiple tasks. So that's when you start adding the details about what it's going to take you to accomplish that, which may then uncover that it's actually more things to do than just a single task. So now that one is now 4 tasks. And it may need to take different time in order to accomplish that. So adding details will add clarity to all of the things that you're trying to do. Again, the goal of this is to not block the opportunities that may come during the day. That phone call from a potential client. Again, the client that stops in and is, wants to talk about the next trip, but you're so focused on those tasks of the day that may come across that you're being distracted, and they're like, okay, I can clearly see that this was a bad time for you, so I'll come back. Never. So when you allow this time to have some, interruptions, then you're allowing for opportunities that may add to that, okay? So let's talk about tools. How do you get these things done? What kind of tools can you manage your day-to-day tasks so that you're focused? All right? It could be something as simple as a spiral notebook or to-do list. I mean, whatever you use best, easy to do, it doesn't have to be complicated. That could be one way. You also might be a sticky note savant. I don't know. That you are that person that has sticky notes and that's what you do. That's how you manage that. As long as this works for you, that's what's important. Because if you use technology and all technology does is make it more of a tedious thing and it takes more time for you to get it done because you're too focused on getting everything in technology, it doesn't work. This is called ABC Notes. It is an app. If you like sticky notes and you want to use technology, now the free version allows you to have one desktop, but if you spend $3.99 or whatever it is, it can have 15 different desktops. And so you could have 15 different, and each one has multiple sticky notes. You can rotate the sticky notes. You can change the colors of the sticky notes. I might have this installed on my phone, but it's just, house tasks. It's just a tool, all right? But it's one, if you like sticky notes, that could be an option for you. Let's not forget about Outlook, okay? Outlook has a lot of things in it that can make you effective. You can color code stuff. You can add, of course, your tasks. You can flag them. There's a lot of things that you can accomplish within Outlook without having to recreate the wheel. Okay, so an Outlook is a great tool if it's something that you're already using. And then there are a variety of apps that you might be able to use as well. Wunderlist, that is really good. Todoist, Google Keep, and AnyDo, all of them have different things that they do, different, it's like everything else. One may work for you better, may not work for you for the other ones. Let me just say, while this one, I've used it and I've read a lot, it is truly the best one out there, it is going to go away. Because somebody bought them, Microsoft, and once they did that, what's happening is that they're no longer going to provide updates. So as with any technology tool, when the updates do not keep up, at some point the technology will no longer be able to run that app. So it's not like they've said we're going to not do it or we're going to pull it off the market, but just know that if you start down that path with this, at some point you will actually not be able to update it because they're not providing any of that. Yes?
I thought they're building those features into, I can't remember what Microsoft calls it, but they have an app.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. I mean, many companies will buy a competitor, and what they'll do is they'll take the best features and do something. So they may have their own, but this one will not be usable any longer. So that's the way it is.
I think you're thinking of To-Do.
What's that?
Nora, it's Microsoft To-Do. It's got a lot of strength. It'll
Yeah.
pull it out of your emails,
Yeah.
create to-do lists. It's a really strong program.
Yeah.
You might have just a whiteboard in your office that allows you to write your tasks, and so you'd be able to have all of those things in there. So again, it's finding the tools that work best for you, however that is, in order for you to get your to-do lists done. So again, let's just go back to that 90-minute cycle, because once you've got all of your things, you've identified how well you work, you've got your task list, you've identified priorities, then you need to find and place those within some 90-minute sections so that you can say, this is when I'll accomplish this task, this is when I'll accomplish that task. And again, make sure that you take some time to get away, to take a break when you're not working. So let's look at how to maximize efficiency. Here's the dreaded one, email. And to be honest, it is not evil. okay? If you look at it this way, like everything else, just like a distraction during the day, if you look at it as an interruption, as like that, I hate to do this, but I have to, you're going to miss out on the relationship, because email is really just one more way that you're building and continuing to maintain a relationship with your clients and your prospective clients. So email, while it is something that if we don't manage it properly can consume an awful lot of our time, but when we look at it like a relationship builder, then we've got value in that. We come at it from a different perspective. So for email, when you get in the morning, when you start your day, the question you want to ask yourself, do I need to do this now? Is it the first thing I need to do, or should I do it later? If your day starts off where you have the least amount of distractions and you have the most focus, then this is maybe not the best, unless it's the worst thing for you and it takes the most energy and you need the most focus. But if it's not, then maybe you need to delay, unless of course you know that there's a critical thing, you may have a client that's getting ready, then yes, scan your email. But maybe that's something that you need to push off till later so that you can get something done that's harder and you need more focus. Hopefully this does not look like your inbox, but you might look for ways to organize your emails so that it helps you identify priorities. That's the goal, so that you're not having to go through every single email to determine, does it need an action? What do I do with that? Because a lot of times you start down that rabbit hole of looking at emails and there's just a lot of things that we don't need to focus on right now, and that's where the time happens. So here's one example. If you use Outlook, and I do think Outlook is powerful, I think there's a lot of good features in it. I think Google's fine, I think Yahoo Mail, but you don't have the ability to really do a lot of refinement in those tools. So it's a matter of like, now this is my inbox. It's like I have all of these separate folders and subfolders set up, because that way I can move things around, or I will talk about it in a minute. I actually have rules set up so that all of my emails are directed to specific folders, and that helps me understand the priorities of those, because some of those are things that I won't need to look at for a day or two or three, or some of them maybe I don't ever need to look at them until I want to, because they're just informational. So I use this folder system to help me accomplish that. You might even do something where you prioritize it, so an email comes in and then you move it instantly to, is it something I have to do today? Is it something I have to do this week? Or is it something I have to do this month, this quarter? Or is it just an FYI email? So you do that and it helps you prioritize so that you can focus. You might even do it this way, where you have a client, you have multiple client folders, and then you have, okay, for that client, is it something I need to do today or this week or this month? Same thing. It's hoping, working through that you can prioritize this and then get back to what you really need to be doing. Okay? Break ready?
The break's been ready for about 20 minutes, but you've just been waxing on, so we didn't interrupt you.
I would ordinarily put a visual response to that, but I won't do that. So, well, we got a little more time, so why don't you want to grab something?
There's truffle fries back here.
Okay, all right, let's do that. But let's just take 5 minutes, grab some stuff, and 15, whatever. 15, come back. I hate it when I have no control.